Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Taurus, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of January 2025. I hope you are well and Happy New Year to you. I'm using the Night Sun Tarot for you today. Before we begin, I'd like to start off with an apology. If you can hear any rumbling in the background, there is no electricity on my mountain at this point, and so today's reading is brought to you by the magical technology of generators, and it's running in the garden. It's quite loud, but it is the only way that I could get any readings recorded at all, so we make do. If you can hear it, I apologise. Hopefully by next month this won't be an issue, but the alternative was not recording at all. So and other things, if the reading resonates with you and you'd like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That is via link in the description box below. So Taurus, let's have a look and see what's going on with you. Could I have 3 cards for Taurus, please? Thank you. There's the first one. We have the Death card, and let's just seat that there for your recent past. Tell me about current energy, please, for Taurus. There it is. We have the Hermit, and what about what's coming towards Taurus, please, for January? What does Taurus need to know about January? Try that again. Snowplow. Ooh, what's coming towards Taurus for January? Whoa, there it is. Okay, we have the Ace of Cups. This is lovely. But we do have, let's just pop this here, we do have the Devil at the bottom of the deck here, representing obviously the planet Saturn, but it's also representing the sign of Capricorn. What do we have underneath there? 4 of Cups. Whenever the Devil puts in an appearance, we are dealing with themes of fear. We're wrestling around what it is that we're afraid of, and what the expressions of that in our life is. So even actually, to be entirely accurate, when we feel stuck and we feel trapped, it's very easy to attribute that to some sort of environmental consideration, or somebody's acting like an asshole, or I can't leave my job even though I want to, these kind of things. And as we delve deeper into our personal work, I think part of what happens during that process is we start to understand that everything has power that we give it. Nothing has power that we don't give it. And so I would say that you've been going through some sort of death and rebirth process for some time now. Let's, just not dive too deeply into the cards yet before we get the clarifiers up. The death card's a really strong symbol of the death rebirth process. And when I pull cards for the recent past, we are looking at, what could have happened this morning when you got out of bed, or any time up to about 6 weeks back from here, and that energy has been strong within you, but it's caused you to have to look at some things that perhaps you're afraid of, perhaps things around your stability, perhaps things even around your material stability, or your material stuff, your assets. There's some things changing, and I do feel that for most people it's changing really quite rapidly. As January starts to get underway, there hasn't really been a sign that I've read for yet that hasn't had this strong sense of something coming along. Now, the extent to which we are able to influence or control our personal circumstances, it's minimal, because Mars is in retrograde at the moment. There's very little in the way of forward motion happening here at this time, and probably that's going to be true for several months. The things out of our control, though, I feel they are going to start changing quite rapidly, probably from the turn of the year onwards, as such that events are moving along and we're trying to keep up with it, Anywho, let's get some clarifiers out, and then I can be a bit more precise about what I'm seeing here. Tell me about the Death card. Why is this here for Taurus? Oh, caught it. Right. We have the 10 of Swords and the 7 of Wands. Tell me about the Hermit, please. Why is this here for Taurus? So we have the Eight of Cups. The Temperance card has flipped, but I'm not going to take it. I'm just going to pop it back in there because it didn't jump out. Tell me about the Hermit. Okay, Queen of Pentacles, more Capricorn energy. And then finally the Ace of Cups. Why is this here, please, for Taurus? Fucking hell, these cards are all over the place. Come here. There we go. The Hermit again. All right. Double Virgo energy. This. And the Strength card. Amazing. Two of Wands at the bottom of the deck now. And just while I'm straightening these cards up, for that is required. Otherwise I'll have a breakdown about how wonky they are. Oh, goodness. Okay, there we go. So you can see what I'm looking at. I said in December that I felt that the energy of that month was very internal, and that makes a lot of sense anyway, because it's the December is where we have the winter solstice. The night is at its longest and whatnot. We really are in the depths of winter by the time we get into December, and it's very natural for us to move into more of a kind of yin energy during that time. But there was something quite specific about the way that it was showing up for all of the signs in December. It's like, yeah, there might be family get-togethers, there might be parties, but actually there was a lot of reflecting going on, and a lot of kind of touching around in one's insides to see how we were feeling about things. I don't think anybody's necessarily felt too much like hardcore celebration this year, which is interesting. But, and this is true for most of the signs, and I say most because I'm going to exclude Scorpio from that, because Scorpio doesn't seem to be getting this message at all. There's a carrying on of that energy through into the month of January. Now, there are lots of reasons for that. We're just coming out of a Mercury retrograde, which is one thing. The Mars retrograde is still very much in operation and will be, I think, until the 23rd of February. So, we're only about a third of the way through it as things stand at the moment. By the time you add on the shadow period at the end, where it's retracing its steps to get back to where it was, Mars and Leo at that point, we're actually looking at spring, really, before there's any real kind of movement for people personally. But this introspection energy that we see doubled up actually with the energy of the Hermit there, the Two of Wands, the Devil card, these are all pointing towards something really quite important that's adjusting and moving around for you. Now, I think you had probably one of the best readings for the month of December, full stop. Like, Capricorn had a very interesting reading. But there was something quite brutal about the way that it was coming through for Capricorns. It was like a snapping point more than anything else, whereas you seem to be chugging along quite nicely at a speed that feels good to you. Kind of balls deep in some sort of really profound transformation process, Taurus. Now, we start over here with the Death card, right? And you can't get away from the idea of transformation when we're talking about death, right? We're changing from one state to another. We're not talking about endings. We're talking about moving from one state to another, from a particular mindset to another, from a particular level of confidence to another. However you want to see it, right? It's changing state. And that actually applies for the 10s as well, because when we hit the 10 of anything, we don't just stop. What we do is we pick up the ace of that suit and then we go around in a circle again. We did the same thing with the Fool to the World card. Everything runs in cycles. And so an ending really is quite illusory. Can be quite difficult actually to even ascertain where an ending is a little way down the line, right? When you have a bit more information and you can see how things all fit together, it's difficult to demarcate this was an exact ending right here, because there's always things that are opening up as a result of whatever has just closed out over here. And, you know, depending on your vantage point, depends on whether you saw it as a beginning or an ending or both simultaneously. So we have two cards that speak tentatively to endings, but also tentatively to beginnings. You know, the beginning of the beginning, the beginning of the end, you know, that kind of energy. All showing up here in your recent past. The Ten of Swords is not a card that generally people like to receive because, well, it looks brutal. I mean, having 10 swords sticking out of your spine is going to be pretty uncomfortable for anyone. But the swords are all about words and thoughts and the workings of the mind, logic, reason, you know, that kind of calculation, processing on an intellectual level. You know, this is everything that the swords is talking about. So it's modes of thinking, modes of communication, you know, expression of ideas. And something about the way that you have thought about things is coming to an end. It's being replaced with something else. Now, what that something else is not yet here. But certainly we can recognize in some way or another, at some point in the last 6 weeks, something fundamentally has changed about the way that you see the world, the way that you process information in the world, perhaps even the way that you see yourself operating in the world. And I think for the better. Because the Death card always comes in to create space in our lives somewhere, which means that something that was outmoded, something that belonged to a previous version of you, something that then by extension is a limitation to the new version of you, has been cleared away. It's made space for something. And although we've got a kind of tense energy here with the Ten of Swords, we've got relief coming in to fill the space that tension created. And this card here, Mars in Leo, is actually where I think Mars is right now. It's in retrograde motion and it's going to go back into the sign of Cancer. You'll have to look to your chart to see whereabouts that is actually happening for you personally. Those two houses proving possibly to be quite important. Tell me about this. Thank you. Got the Page of Cups. It feels like there's a replacement of the need to fight, the need to be defensive, the need to be guarded, the need to, you know, fight for your right to exist pretty much, which is, I think, sometimes how Tauruses have felt in the past. Like, you know, this whole thing about Taurus being bulls, not cows. I think a really important take on what it is to be Taurus, to choose to take up space because it is yours to take up. You know, that in order for you to be yourself, you're going to have to be a little bit bigger than everybody else. It's just the way that these things are, right? And the process of Uranus going through Taurus, which has been happening since 2018, and, you know, with all the love in the world, being really quite distressing for many Tauruses, but very, very valuable in terms of shaking you free from wherever you've been. It's shaking you free of foundations that were always keeping you small. Like this Daughter of Cups here, this is a Page of Cups in the standard deck. And whether we're talking about, you know, Tauruses as cows who were kind of sucking their ribs in, trying not to take up space, walking around on their tippy hooves. Or whether we're talking about Taurus as a sign that understands innately the power of being together with people, and yet never quite feeling like they had the right to occupy that space without kind of going above and beyond everybody else to protect their position. Always being the person who brought the cakes in on somebody's birthday, right? And you would definitely bring the cakes in on your birthday as well, right? Having to, you know, keep studious notes on when everybody's birthdays were so you didn't forget. You know, it's kind of like that pushing to make sure that you were always earning your position wherever you were. The ugly duckling analogy is probably a really good one. So see here is signet. And I always think of the story of the ugly duckling when I see this specific card here. Now, we don't have a swan in the reflection, but we do have a rainbow. And a symbol of positivity and light and joy being reflected back to the signet. But was the signet ever really able to appreciate that? I think not. But there's something here that's changed. As hard as you've battled to be like everybody else, Taurus, you never really were. And maybe the illusion that you could be is the thing that you're breaking through. Or maybe the illusion that anybody truly is the thing that you're starting to break through. You've put so much work into truly showing up as the authentic being that you are, that people are starting to recognize that you're not a duckling, you're a signet. Like, you stand for something different. And I think you're starting to see that now, Taurus. Yes. Two of Pentacles and the Chariot at the bottom of the deck. I'll just put that down there. Right. So we have the symbol of the butterfly, which is also talking about transformation. But we've got that same rainbow motif that's copied through from the two cards. And there's something really quite profound that's going on here somewhere, and I might have to take a moment just to feel my way around the edges of what that actually is. No, I think maybe we might save that for the extended, because we could probably spend about 15-20 minutes talking about that. We will just hold with the idea that transformation is occurring. It's happened already. You're starting to accept it. You're kind of leaning into it. It's the difference between a butterfly that has literally just come out of its, chrysalis state, and is unfurling its wings, compared to the butterfly that's been cheesing around being a butterfly for a few months now and has kind of got the whole, flying thing down pat. Just the only difference between those two states is a little bit of experience. And I think what you're trying to get used to is an expression of Taurian energy that is much more powerful, much more light for you to handle, much stronger, so that you are best placed to start exercising this in the present, right? Everything has a period of adjustment to it, and I think that's where you've been going, but you're starting to understand what has happened to you, why it has happened, and the whether it's a negative inner critic, cannot speak there, inner critic, or some other self-limiting kind of processes that have been going on in your head. They're being released. Because with this Chariot, I said, you don't feel to me, Taurus, like you're anywhere near as terrified as your own power as you used to be. There really was, and terror is the best way to describe the feeling that was there before. It's like, no, this is okay now. This is okay. I've been out of the chrysalis for a while. I know how to flap my wings. I'm cool. I know I'm not a duckling. I know I can't fit in with all of the ducklings because I'm literally not the same thing. And that's okay. Like, I accept myself. This is all good. And now this period of adjustment has been, what is it like to operate at this level? Just normally. And whenever we go through any kind of really profound spiritual process of evolution, of transformation, however you want to call it, right? What we're doing essentially is negotiating a new baseline of interaction between us and the world, us and source, us and the universe, us and God, however you want to term it. And until you've been doing it for a little bit, it's difficult to know what that is. So you've been feeling around, right? We're not going too wild with everything, but something has changed. and you have accepted it. Now, when we move into your current energy, we've got the Hermit there, Virgo energy. We've got the Eight of Cups, and we've got that Capricorn energy of the Two of Pentacles. I just want to point out that this is Capricorn too, if I haven't already done that. This here being Pisces. It's interesting. Virgo and Pisces. Anyway, the Hermit is about the inward journey. It's about looking within to see what is going on in there, but understanding that all of the information that we could possibly need for our next step forward is contained in there. Now, often the problem is that we don't really know what we're looking for. Sometimes what we're looking for has been deliberately obscured by our minds. But with that Ten of Swords there, I do think there's been somewhat of a grand unveiling of things in your head. Now, whether it's been around defense mechanisms, projections, protective mechanisms, whatever it is, I feel like there's something that's been rather starkly laid out for you inside. And it could absolutely revolve around what it is that you have been afraid of. It could be what it is, the ways that you felt stuck and trapped. It could be any one of a number of very difficult kind of shadowy energies that you've been playing with, where maybe it's things to do with feelings of rejection, maybe it's feelings of low worth, insecurity, and wherever those things came from, they've been laid bare. They are being laid out starkly before you. And you feel to me like you're casting your lamp over what you're seeing, and you're like, I'm not sure that I really know how to connect with any of that anymore. Now that's exactly as it should be, right? Because you've grown, you've evolved, you've transformed, you've changed. But it's almost like somebody else telling you their story now, starting to see that inside of you. It's not entirely gone yet, but it's certainly much more visible than ever it was before. And we have the Eight of Cups and the Queen of Pentacles showing us that the best investment that we can make in ourselves at this time is to choose to put down emotional burdens that we should not have been carrying for the longest time. The number 8 is essentially connected to power and all expressions of power. And so the 8s in tarot speak to either, where our power lies, or where we fail to see that our power lies. And in the reclaiming of that energy, we are empowered to do what is right or what is necessary for the next stage of our journey specifically. And here, under the light of an eclipse, we have 8 cups that are stacked in such a way as to show you that there is one very clearly missing. And in tarot, we talk about going to find our 9 of cups. This is what we're talking about, right? The 9 of cups is the goal, but the going to find it, which is the empowered state of, I don't want to be where I am anymore. I'm ready to grow. I'm ready to change. I'm ready to evolve. I'm ready to go to the next level. That's all here in the 8 of Cups. The Queen of Pentacles is the way by which we understand what is required for us to get there, right? The Queens all help us understand particular things. The Queen of Pentacles, first and foremost, helps us understand value, but she also then latterly helps us understand the value of investment in ourselves, in other people, in whatever it is, right? She's got this pentacle and she's like, I need to put this somewhere. Where is the best place for me to put it? Now, in the sign of Capricorn, as she does represent, it's about what is going to be the most efficient, what is going to take us the furthest. So we're moving away from a situation that no longer serves. And I think that what's starting to dawn on you, Taurus, is that you are not the same person as you were even just a few months ago. Like, I would say probably since... When did Pluto start going direct? I feel like that was about the beginning of September. Why would I pick the beginning of September as being the time? I don't know. And that's the only transit I can think of off the top of my head that started around about that time. But it feels like You are not the same person that you were in September. Now, it's December as I'm recording this. That is not a great deal of time. And I think there's something slightly startling about the rapidity with which you have undergone this change, such that you would see bits of yourself laid out in front of you internally and be like, I can't connect to this anymore. Like this isn't me. This doesn't really resonate with me anymore. I have no choice but to walk away from whatever I've been holding inside for the longest time to make space for what I do want to invest in. You know, often this kind of progress takes place over years, not months, Taurus. It feels like you are systematically dismantling within any attachment to what no longer serves you, any attachment to anything that emotionally just isn't here for you anymore. Now, for a lot of you, that will be something to do with childhood trauma and things that have been experienced in there. For others of you, I feel like it's unpicking where this insecurity came from, where this low self-worth came from. And then, you know, conversely, stacking up all of the things that you have done, that you have achieved, that you have managed for yourself, including the ways that you've changed. And saying, in light of all of this evidence, I can no longer deny that I am different. Not just different to who I was 3 months ago, although undoubtedly you are. But the person that made the mistakes, the person that felt small, the person that was insecure of 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 5, 10, 15 years ago, that person no longer exists. They have a contribution to your psyche. They're part of your story of how you got to where you are right now. But they aren't really who you are right now. And so then we come to January. Ace of Cups, the Hermit, and the Strength card. And if nothing else, January contains the potential of all that is new for you to experience emotionally now that the space has been created. I've said this before, like, potential doesn't switch on and off. It's not, you know, just there sometimes and not there other times. You know, and you might get that impression sometimes in the way that readers talk about the energy of the aces. It's all like, oh, it's here, you know, take advantage of it, capitalize on it. It is just that at some times we are more able to notice that the energy of potential is there and tap into it than others. But it doesn't mean that the potential doesn't exist at any other time. Now, with the Hermit card here, I think that you're really starting to get quite excited about the level of your own potential that you can see. You know, with Taurus, a lot of the issue has always been about the emotional restriction that has been self-imposed, right? Checking your behavior, checking your thoughts, checking everything, right? Just to make sure that you could fit in as well as possible. Now you've created that space, and it takes an awful lot of energetic investment into that to try and keep oneself correct for the longest time. You have some of that energy back to you, and we can see that you're investing it in yourself. But suddenly it feels like, why not you? Not why me, but why not you? Why can't you do this? Why couldn't you do the other? Like, what actually are your new limitations? Because I don't think that you're anywhere near them. And I think that you know that innately too. So we've got this Chariot card sitting at the bottom of the deck here. Right? It represents the sign of Cancer for me. But it talks about many other things besides. It talks about a kind of emotional balance. It speaks of the act of truly knowing oneself, right? And bringing everything that you are to the table, whether that's negative or positive, light or dark, right? It's that point of alignment. And I really do feel like in this particular depiction of the Chariot, that's even more strongly underlined, because we don't have a charioteer and two horses. We have one singular horse with the pentacle around its neck and the moon on its forehead. Like, we've got an amalgamation of all three of these together. So we have the power and the stamina of the beast, but we also have that higher level of decision making of the charioteer, all contained within one body. We're talking about a point of true integration that has occurred here. So yes, the devil's had something to say about it, but I don't think that the devil has been able to sway you from the course that you're on anywhere near the way that he used to. I think it's quite interesting that the Two of Wands is sat between those two major arcana cards, because we can look at that and quite simply say the choice is between fear or knowing yourself. And I've been with you on this ride since 2019, but like January 2020, I was really paying close attention to what Taurus was doing. And you have consistently chosen the path of the Chariot, even though it was really fucking hard. Now, don't get me wrong, there were probably places where you kind of fell into fear and you fell into feeling trapped and you fell into all of these things. But there's only so long that you can consistently choose that harder but more correct road before this doesn't even get a look in as an option. What we've got here is a true appreciation of a sign who has grown beyond measure. Almost to the point where you're not quite sure how big you are yet, but you know you're considerably bigger than you used to be. Let's get this here. You know, the Strength card is about personal development. It is about growth. It is about becoming bigger than our issues. Eight of Pentacles. It's about putting in the work, right? And you've been doing that. You've been doing that for a long time, Taurus. Fixing what was wrong. Taking care of your own basic needs. Not looking to other people to do that for you. Now, I think there's no way of cutting it for you where you can look at what you were previously fearful of and honestly think that it's legitimate. This is what I'm talking about when I say I feel like you've kind of got a lot of this old shit open in front of you and you're like, I don't really recognise this. I don't really understand how I could fit this into my psyche now, but I know that I was living that for the longest time. And there were points where I was scared of this person, or I was scared of this particular interaction, or I was scared of the kind of power that this other person had over me. And it's just not there anymore. You put the work in, Taurus. Nine of Cups. You achieved the balance. You know what's really interesting is I've done a few of the January readings and some of them are a little more somber than others. Some of them are a little bit more, how would we put it, cautionary than others. When we're talking about great change, right, sitting on the precipice of great change, which is what 2025 feels like it is. And the one sign that should be quite frankly crapping its pants about the level of change that 2025 will bring should be fixed Earth. because it takes a monumental amount of power, a monumental amount of energy to shift what is fixed in the earth from one position to another. And in the last 6 years, that's exactly what you've been doing yourself. And now, as we stand on the precipice of 2025, the dark carnival that is 2025, this one sign that one would expect in normal times to be the one who was most resistant, the one who was absolutely like anchoring themselves to the nearest concrete post and saying, no fucking way, is the lightest energy of all of them that I have read for so far. Like, you truly have discovered the power of going within, Taurus. You have balanced yourself out. You have given yourself what you needed. You have redressed what was imbalanced. Now, the story doesn't stop there. I mean, obviously you're going to continue to keep growing. But what a thing to behold. I think it's very interesting that we have the Eight of Cups here. We have the Ace of Cups over here. And then we end up with the Nine of Cups here. Right? The route to what is no longer for us, to what is for us, is accessed by way of the relationship that we have with ourselves. It is that sacred relationship, which is actually the expression of our relationship with the divine here. I think January is going to be very interesting, not because there's going to be any forward movement or anything like that, because I don't think that you need that at this point. I think you're starting to think about the future, and you're starting to think about what a Nine of Cups would look like, because you're focusing on drawing yourself towards, or even drawing towards you, what you actually want, what will make you happy, what will represent emotional fulfillment to you, rather than trying to run away from that which does not represent those things. So if there is energy at all that we can lay out for you in January, it is the contemplation, the quiet reflection on why not you for this or this or that. You know, the kind of things that you may never have thought about 6 months ago, suddenly seeming perfectly achievable with the right amount of planning and focus and energy and hard work, and considerably less of the fear that you've always carried around with you. What does that look like, Taurus? Because now would be the time to start planning the next phase, but planning it properly, not kind of crashing through it, which I feel like Uranus and Taurus has been you know, when you get big blanket or a big bed sheet or something, you got a small child in the middle of it, you know, it's kind of flinging them around, the child like, or a bouncy castle or something like that, right? It's been a trip, it's been a ride, and it's almost done. I think it's July-ish, Uranus moves into Gemini. It's going to feel very, very different to how it's been in your sign, right? There will be, at the point where you don't really need it anymore, there will be a bit of peace. But now you've understood what it is to give to yourself what you need, so that you can also give to others what they need without it costing you. I feel like you've arrived at a much more powerful place to build than ever you've had at your disposal before. So now, in January, is the time to start planning. Maybe for some of you it's the time to start earning. That's possible. But this doesn't happen quickly. Nothing here happens quickly, and that's okay because you're Taurus. But if you could go anywhere, if you could do anything, if anything was achievable, which more or less is the situation now, what does it look like? Where would you go? What would you do? And more importantly, how could you do it without it harming you, without abandoning the things that you need? Because this is what January is all about for you. This is wild. Right, I'm going to go over to the extended. Very welcome to join me over there if you would like to. Link is in the description box. Because I want to have a look at January very, very specifically. I don't think there's anything that's going to happen because, like I said, I think there's a lot of internal stuff going on here for most of the signs in January. But I'd like to know if it's time to start creating some structure around a dream that you have. What is it that represents the work at this point? And how are you able to keep that fluid, keep that dynamic so that it can happen against this backdrop of the dark carnival of 2025 without you getting too entrenched, too rigid, too cemented into something, you know? So if you'd like to join me, you're very welcome to do so. I've already said that, so I shall leave it there. Know that I love you all very, very much, and I'll see you soon.